What's going on, guys? Bit of a weird video today. It's going to be a bit all over the place. Couple of small jobs to do on the S13, and then we'll have a Zodiac update, a few changes we're going to make, a few bits on the software that we use in the car, just a few bits like that. But to start off today, we're going to be swapping the wheels on the works over. So we're going from the 235 that I did have on there, on the 11J. We're going to be putting the 265 Zestino on it. I had these on my old setup but kept breaking gearboxes and drive shafts and things, and with the power of the 2J I'm going to need something a bit wider and a bit grippier. And while we're playing with the over fenders, let's get the biggest tyre possible on there and make sure it definitely fits with the right amount of fitment, because obviously the arch sits against this lip, so it should work out all well. So in an hour or so after I finish changing these tyres, because they're a bit of a pain, should have some 265 semi-slicks on there. Right, so there's the 265 Zestinos mounted on the 11J work CR2Ps. May not be the wheel I end up running on the car, but it's what I've run before, so it's what I've got for now. I'm interested to see whether work are going to release any new wheels that I might fancy some more of, and I'll get a slightly different offset sort of. Yeah, although these are good, I could do with a little bit more to zero camber than I can get right now. Because I think it was minus 0.5, like 0.7 on the camber with this size offset and this wheel. So we'll see what happens. Right, so we've got engine RPM up the top, so we only took it sort of 3,000-ish. We didn't need to go mental with this one because this is just purely idle data. The manifold pressure had a bit of a moment when we blipped it. It must have got a bit of fuel in it because it went to 44 psi, which is the boost cut reference at the moment. Just haven't set any of that up yet, so that's why the AFR data is a bit rich there. The leanest it went was a 14.2, which is still on the rich side of things, which is perfect because with a supercharged engine you want to be aiming for around 12-ish, 12.1, which is what we managed to get it to all the way across on idle, and it still goes rich when you give it a boot full to obviously allow for the more boost that's coming in once it does come in. So we've got boost reference in this one here. So it didn't really get much above sort of 1 psi, but then again that is only just a blip on idle. That's not what it'll make. It should make about 10 psi on that setting, hopefully anyway, fingers crossed. But the system we use in the car is an MSD grid system. It's the newest stuff they offer. It gives us a lot of stuff that we can play with. So it's got full grid system in there. We've got launch, we've got boost retard all behind. We've got the O2 sensor modules there, so we can see all of that. There's lots of things I can play with. I can play with pulling timing on boost. I can do lots of weird and wonderful things with this stuff. I can't show you too much because it's not connected to the car, but this is the MSD Grid power controller. This is that big one in the middle. So this, we can change a lot of stuff on this. Engine RPM, we can retard timing over time and retard timing over rev limit, and we can also play with, so find the right section. Oh, I can't show it. Yeah, I can't show what we can play with on there because it's not connected to the car right now. But I can also retard by boost, and that's basically going to be making this plot just retard down to the timing we're aiming for. I mean, 32 degrees currently is still quite conservative for this engine, still quite conservative for the car. So I'm hoping it should be fine at this, but we'll find out when we take it to the track. It's Summer Nationals at the end of the month, so I'm hoping to dip into the 8-second passes with this, maybe an 8-9, all steel, just supercharged, full tube chassis, drag radials, and it should all be fun. What's going on, guys? Big day today. I'm actually terrified to do this, to be honest, but today's the day we cut the bonnet and try and get it all situated nice with a smooth cut and make sure the 2G's sticking through just right. Looking at it here, I'm definitely going to have to cut quite a lot out of it. Yeah, I'm actually bricking it for today, but slow and steady, and just try and take it one small cut at a time and get it all done. First things first is get the bonnet out and try and get it bolted on. Find some bolts for it first, actually. Get it off the wall, and then make it so it goes onto there. Wish me luck. I'd like to just take a second to thank Stephen from the past for putting the bolts back in the hole on the bonnet before he put it on the wall. Just saved myself loads of time. But yeah, as you can see, the bonnet on the D-Max bonnet, it steps up around the top. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we don't actually have to cut too much, and it's only a little bit. But I'm still scared. Right, as you can see, I was slightly wrong with the placement of the engine. It doesn't quite come as far forward as I thought. So basically I'm going to need to chop out a little piece out of that vent and a little piece out of that vent, and probably put some bracing on this vent to that vent. The sun's come out. And there to there. Sort of straighten all these back up to the right amount of gap, and I'll neaten up all the vent holes and all that while I'm here. But yeah, there's not actually that much that needs cutting, which is good. But it's also bad at the same time because I wanted it to poke for a bit. You know, obviously I've got to sort out the fitment on the wings because they've never been right. It's always been a bit all over the shop. But the bonnet's sitting square as it comes to me. This gap here is the same as this gap here, so that should be exactly what it needs to be square. And I've just got to sort the wing fitment out. Obviously it doesn't have the wiring looms tucking up the back of it anymore, so there's no need for it to be bulging out anyway. It shouldn't be. But yeah, let's get the generator fired up, courtesy of my dad, and get the Dremel out and start taking it off little bit by little bit until we're happy with it. Well, here at Modified Racing, we like things that come out the bonnet, even if it's just a little bit. But yeah, that's how much I needed to cut. I went a little bit OTT than that little piece there, and there's going to be a plug on that, so I left that sort of a little bit longer, but I can still trim that if need be. And there's some body work to do, you know. It's not an easy thing to cut a bonnet, especially when it's fiberglass and moves around the way it does. But yeah, we're touching there on the oil filler cap at the moment, so I need to try and figure that one out. And the turbo is just touching the bonnet over there, so it's a little bit sort of, you can't really see it, but it is just touching, just. so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that. But the oil filler cap is touching, so I might need a low profile solution for that, because you can actually, yeah, so you can actually see it in there now. I've taken all that off, but it is just touching, just. But you know, chances are it'll be okay, but you can see the amount of room I don't have for things. GoPros are really handy for looking under the bonnet when you don't actually have eyes under there. Now this is locked in place, so the bonnet isn't going anywhere. I set the height so it's even across, and yeah, we're kind of screwed for what we're going to do next, because I need to think about it before I do it. You know, think twice, cut once, and that's it. Well, I also took some time to sort of get the fuel cap fitting a bit better, so it still functions as a fuel cap. I'm going to glue some magnets behind here so that when it shuts, it does shut. I've still got a little bit of fettling to do. The edge doesn't quite line up the way I need it to. I could probably just, yeah, give it one of them and knock that front edge down a little bit, you know. End of the day, it's metal going against fiberglass, it's never going to be perfect. But yeah, bonnet's all done as best it's going to get for now. Still haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do about the turbo and everything. I might try and get a different oil cap for it, and maybe skim a little bit off the turbo. I've still got some playing to do under here to figure stuff out, but most part is done. It's definitely coming out sort of how I visioned it, just not quite exactly the same. But nothing touches there. That's all flexy, so I've just got to sort out the wings and the way they fit, and put some bigger tabs at the back so I can actually screw it and bolt it in and do all that stuff. And yeah, it's just going to be one of them sort of pain jobs, but one of them ones that has to be done. Next job is get the wheels back on the back, the proper wheels, and get the 265s under there, and see if I can manipulate the arches to be a bit wider maybe. I don't know, we'll figure it out. Well, that's the works back on the ZESTINOS. As you can see, they're a tight fit, but there is no tracking in this car yet, so it might be a job to just whack it on the trailer and get it to loop, get him to align it so that I can make the arches fit with it zero camber, or as close to zero as possible. I think this one's pretty much there from a camber gauge that I downloaded off on my phone, but this one says it's there, but it's pushing the arch out a lot. You know, it's touching it, it's definitely rubbing, but I seem to remember one of them not fitting as nice as the other one and having to run camber and a little spacer. So yeah, I'm just a little bit sort of thinking at the moment. It's a thinking game. I'm not going to touch the over fenders yet until I decide what I'm doing. But yeah, not really much else I can do today, or want to do today, because the sun's nice and out.